So, hey folks, what's going on? Welcome to the Spotlight DMV, and I have something so special for you. I'm here today with my three good friends. We're starting something new called We Are the Aunties Now. So it's a new series that we are putting together in hopes that our life experiences are something that can help someone else, that can help our peers, even the younger ones, to navigate going through life. We're all experiencing things right now, and I'm just feeling a real strong pull towards community and collaboration. And I think this is a great way to get that started. So, with that said, let me introduce the ladies. I have Kelly Johnson. Say what's up, Kelly.
Hey y'all, hey.
I have Adrienne Hopkins.
Hey guys.
And I have Viviana Wilson.
Hi everybody.
Yay. Welcome, ladies, and thank you so much for even agreeing to do this with me, to go on this journey with me. And I wanted to talk a bit about how we even got here, because what it ended up being was not what I envisioned, but that is all a part of the journey too, right? So Kelly, talk to us a bit about like what was it like for you? What even made you say yes when? Because listen, let me tell y'all, I called Kelly. I was driving and I have some of my best ideas when I'm in the car. So I'm driving. I'm like, oh, I gotta call Kelly. And I'm like, Kelly, I need your help, and you have to say yes. Do you remember that call?
Yes, I
It's
do.
like, I
Yes.
need your help. You have to say yes. And
Yeah.
so I gave her a brief overview of what I was thinking. And
Mhm.
then months went by before I reached back out again.
Yes.
So, Kelly,
Okay.
what was that like for you when I called you?
Well, first of all, you called me out of the blue without texting me first. And in this day and age, when you see somebody's number come up, you be like, what's she about to
But hold up. So listen, I'm not with the whole text before calling everybody. I can't. It's too much, Either they're gonna
I
pick up or
know.
they're not gonna pick up. But go ahead.
No, I hear you. I hear you. And I think it is so funny that like that's the expectation now is like I would have expected to get a text first. So I was like, well, I hope she's okay. Like, let me answer the phone. And so I answered and listened to what you had to say. And you talked about the fact that you wanted to like build something, to build a platform. And I really love what you've been doing with the Spotlight DMV. I think it is really inspirational and just I love the stories that you've been telling and all of that. And I was actually very honored that you asked me to be a part of whatever it was that you were going to be doing, because you know everybody, and you could have asked anybody to join you. So I was very honored that you asked. And I think at the time that we chatted, like you had an idea. It wasn't fully fleshed out, but you kind of had this idea on your heart that you wanted to see come to fruition. And I was like, well, okay, yes, I will. Let's talk more about it, right? Months went by, and I even told like a couple people about it, like in my little small circle. So they kept asking me, they're like, so whatever happened with that proposal that your friend asked you about? I'm like, I don't know, I haven't heard, but I'm gonna wait till she comes back to me with, with an idea. So, but yeah, I mean, whatever it was gonna look like, I was like excited to be a part of it. And I think that what it has turned into this conversation amongst like friends and women who have like experiences that they can share. I am excited to see where this goes and to hear what everybody has to say. So,
Yeah, and Viv, I was kind of bullying her since last September. We talk just about daily and sometimes multiple times a day, and it just turns into these good conversations. And I'm like, oh, I wish we would have recorded this. Like somebody needed to hear what we just went through. And I was like, she's like, well, I don't know. This was back in September. I didn't even know what was going on, but I wanted to record some of our conversations. And she's like, I don't know if I'm ready for that. And I was like, okay, this is what's going to happen. Third week in September, you're going to record with me. We're going to do it. I'm going to call you. You're going to do it. And she didn't say anything. She didn't say yes or she didn't say no. But again, I didn't follow up. So, Viv, do you remember that call when I was bullying you?
I don't remember that specifically. I get bullied by you a lot.
Big sister.
Just for context, that's my big sister, y'all. She always says I'm the older one, but it's all in fun and jokes. It
Uh-uh.
was an honor to be asked. I think my hesitancy
Well,
in
you cut out
accepting.
for just a little bit. So we didn't hear you. You said that I was your big sister, and then you cut out after that.
I'm sorry. So, it was an honor to even be asked because when I watched you do your original videos on the spotlight, I'm like, oh, I want to be on there. I want to say something. I want to be on camera. And I'm like, when you finally came to me to ask, I'm like, I don't have anything to talk about. What are we going to talk about?
Mhm.
And at that time, I had been transitioning into figuring out where I want my career to go. Um, and I wanted to be able to merge what I do. I'm a nurse, with more wellness. And for me, while I do appreciate and enjoy nursing people back to wellness, I live and aspire to live in the keeping yourself healthy before you get sick arena. And so for me, that's just been a transition that I'm trying to figure out how I want it to look and where I want it to go and what it's going to feel like and taste like. And it changes daily. So, when you reached out the second time and pitched this, it didn't look like four women having a conversation.
Mhm.
Again, I thought just because I watched previous episodes of The Spotlight on DMB that it was a one-on-one conversation with my big sis, and I was ready for that. And when initially she said, "Oh, you're gonna do your own podcast," I'm like, "I'm gonna do a podcast. Excuse
Right.
me, like really?" Um, yeah, so we're gonna have to rethink this. I'm not interested in that. You can do that on your own. I don't want to do this. And we just continued to talk. She called me every day and just kind of gave background of where everyone had hesitancy. And initially, I still didn't understand that you were asking all of us to do our own private podcast. And
Mhm.
so when it finally clicked, I'm like, yeah, I agree with the other two ladies. I mean, I don't know what you're talking about, Rose, but yeah, I'm Team Kelly and Adrian because I don't want to do a solo project. Not interested,
Mhm.
not at this point in my life. Um, so when we decided to change up the structure and what things would look like and all of that, I was excited to come on and just kind of see where this takes us. I think we all have a lot to say. Like Kelly said, we all come from different walks of life, and we are the aunties now. We can share our experiences. We can share the experiences we're currently going through, in hopes of enlightening someone who's going through something similar and/or the younger generation, and/or to watch our elders look at us and be proud of something that they weren't able to achieve themselves. So I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, there's a few things that you just touched on. Like you talked about the career transition and I have not told my story like
Mhm.
publicly about my career transition and me leaving my job in October. Um, and it was mostly to yes, clap it up, clap it
Yes,
up.
clap for that. I didn't want to interrupt you, but that's very, yes.
So no interruptions, no interruptions. It's fine. But I went through that transition and it was not just me alone. Like I talked to people all the time and those were like some of the conversations Adrian and I were having, not necessarily about a career shift, but about different things that you encounter in life. And then you also talked about a chance to inspire younger people or our friends, and then also for our elders to be proud of us. And I was listening to one of my favorite podcasts this morning, The Basement, and it's by a pastor, Tim. Well, in this capacity, he's not a pastor, but he was a pastor for years. A young guy, like 40, 46, like my age. But he's no longer a pastor. But what he does in the basement is that he has real conversations. And when I say real, it's like things that you might not, I have not encountered any Christian, someone that was a pastor, was a Christian, talking so openly about their struggles, about their experiences, and about things that they're going through. And so I always feel really blessed to hear the things that he talks about because he's like in your face and he's very unapologetic, but he's like, yeah, I was abused, I was molested as a child, and due to that, I struggled when I got older with being hypersexual, and I struggled with pornography. Like he's telling you everything that he struggled with, but his faith is still so strong. Oh my gosh, so strong. So, Adrian, those two were some of the conversations that we had. Like, what got me to want to have you on here, we were talking about going to see Sarah Jakes Roberts. And so I had waited so long, and then by the time I was ready to buy the tickets, it was all sold out. And I was so pissed. I was pissed because I wanted to go. And I was like, see, this is something that I talked about with my therapist. We talked about the cost of waiting. If you wait to do something, what is it that you're missing out on? What is it going to cost you? And then that's how we started talking about the Jordan year and things like that. So take us through your thought process when you were like, yeah, I want to be a part of this.
Right. So we were having a conversation, and just for awareness, most of the time when I interact with Kelly and yourself, it's usually like in a social setting, right? So we're usually out at parties or having drinks or enjoying ourselves, shouting over music. But since I'm an introvert, most of my most valuable and deep conversations tend to happen in the DMs.
Mm-hmm.
So you
Goes
and I have had a
down.
lot of great interactions within like our Facebook DMs. And so we were having a discussion about waiting on things, taking pauses on stuff, and how we miss out on opportunities. And I have recently been through a few tumultuous years where I put life on pause. And so right now, you happen to catch me at a time where I'm just getting back into my groove of things, where I'm going to try to grasp onto every opportunity that's given to me. I didn't know this was going to be one of
Mm.
those situations, right? But when we were discussing, 2023, I'm not even going to fake like I am a sports ball enthusiast, but everybody with the 23 and Jordan, they're calling this year their Jordan year. And I think usually it's associated with when you turn 23 years old, which makes sense because we're like in the prime of our lives, right?
Mhm.
Um, but even though I'm way past 23, I'm actually entering 39 in a few weeks. I decided that this was going to be my Jordan year. This is going to be the year that I really just take advantage of things, really push myself, really get back to who I am authentically, right? So we had discussed that, and you were like, oh, that would make a great subject. And I said, oh, yeah, girl, that would make an awesome subject, thinking there was going to be an episode. I even gave you the idea of maybe like stretching it throughout the year and tapping into certain topics that can fall underneath that. And then just like everybody else, you came knocking on my door and you were like, oh, I just want you to basically do your own podcast about your Jordan year. And while I like to be transparent and open, like an entire podcast just with moi, that's daunting, right? Um, and then when you were like, oh yeah, and I want you to have like the first deliverable in a few weeks, I was like, the pressure is getting worse. Like I can't do that, right? But that it was a good opportunity also to exercise. One of the things that I am embracing, and maybe we'll tap into further along in the series, is presenting boundaries, right? So right now, I am excited and I'm enthusiastic to talk to like girlfriends that I have socialized and had fun with, but I'm excited to get to know you guys on a deeper level, be transparent and authentic with all of our walks in life, and just see where this takes us. So I'm happy to be here, and just like everybody else, I'm really honored, and I'm just glad we're doing this. It's awesome.
Yes, and listen, y'all, I'm so happy they all said yes, but like they all said, I had something different in mind. And my proposal, so what was pushing me, I wanted to have more content, but it is, on one person. So it's kind of a lot for one person. So it's like, well, maybe if I get some people that feel like they have something to share, then they can create the content and I can produce it, I can market it, and they could do whatever they want, like call it your own show, whatever. I was like little Oprah over here. I was little Oprah over here with my shows on the Spotlight DMV. And so all three of them pushed
Do we
back
lose
and they were
Rose?
like, no, boo
Yeah.
boo, mm-mm,
Rose, we
mm-mm.
lost you.
She's frozen.
Can you hear us?
There she goes. She's back.
Okay.
I'm back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So where did you lose me? Little
Little
Oprah?
O.
Oh.
I'm gonna start calling you O Dog.
Oh my gosh, yes. I was little Oprah over here looking for people that had felt they had something to say and wanted to share that. And so when they all came back and they were like, no, no, And, everyone didn't say no outright, but, they mostly it was about the time and about being by yourself. And so I had conversations with each of you separately. And I remember I was like, oh, well, Kelly is also doing it. Like I'm talking to Adrian. I'm like, Kelly is also doing it. She's like, oh, is she? So what does she have to say? Don't be asking me these questions.
We lose her again.
But
Rose, when you get into the meat and potatoes, we lose you.
Oh,
We lost you, Rose.
oh no.
yeah, your connection is going in and out.
Am I back?
You're
Yeah, you're
back.
back.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. All right, so I'm sorry, where was I at?
You were having a conversation with me, trying to tell me how Kelly was all in to try to force my arm into doing this. That's where we were at.
That's where we're
How you
at.
set us
Yes.
all up. That's where
Yes.
we were at.
Well, I was very honest about what people were saying, and like you were saying, Adrian, it was a chance for you to practice some of the things that you've been talking about, practice setting your boundaries, and for me, it was a chance for me to practice that things don't have to be the way that I see them, right? It can end up something great if we do something different. And so that's when we got together and we spoke and y'all were excited about working together. And though I didn't want to be involved afterwards, I was like, well, I think this is good for me because um, I remember I used to work with this lady and she would come over and she's like talking about these projects, right? And she's talking everything through. And it would annoy me because in my, like the way I was viewing it, I was like, oh, she doesn't trust me and she got to keep going over everything that's going on with this project. But what I learned was she was just speaking her thoughts out loud. It was what she needed to do to process what was happening, to be able to get clarity. And sometimes I didn't even need to say anything. She just needed to hear herself say it. And then she's like, okay, great. Thanks for the talk. Thanks for the talk. And so I feel like that is something that's helpful for me as well, where we start talking about, how we talked in the DMs, how me and my sister talk all the time, how Kelly and we talk every day via DM as well. And so, yeah, I was just happy that we ended up here with a collaboration with all of us involved and willing to talk. So, what is it that y'all what do you hope the impact of being a part of this is. Like for
Mm.
me, again, it's all about community. And I think that that really struck strong with me in 2020 when we saw everything that was going on with George Floyd and the pandemic and just how people were coming together to support each other. And it really just gave me a lot of hope. It gave me peace in a time where we didn't know what the hell was going on, right? And I feel like things like there's such a shift happening. And I don't know if y'all feel the same way. Do y'all feel a shift going on?
Oh, something's going on.
Yeah, I'm like,
There's
I
a
don't know
there's
what.
a there's a lot happening in general. And I and
Mm-hmm.
I think and I think it's I think some of that is good to talk about. Just processing everything that's happening. I think what Kelly was about to say, which I don't know if I would call it a shift. Um, and maybe because I associate a shift with maybe something being positive. And I don't know if that's what's happening. All I know is there is a lot happening in the world, right? And
Hmm.
so I think that this podcast can be a place where we discuss all of that, whether it be from a community and a social aspect to things that touch within our personal lives,
Hmm.
um, and a little bit of selfishness. It'll be for ourselves too, right? Because when you're talking about speaking things out loud, not even just from a professional standpoint, but like how we do with therapists. Sometimes I vent to my therapist, I vent to my man, just so I can get some stuff out of my system. And
Hmm.
so discussing what's happening outside of our heads versus internalizing all of it that's happening in our lives and the world around us, that's a plus for me, right? And then I think also showing authenticity, some transparency in those discussions, especially from the various perspectives that we all have. There's going to be people who relate to that, right? And
Right.
so a lot of times, not that I want to say that I'm like this person who's like impacted so many people, but times that people have told me that I've brought value into their lives or I've impacted them in some type of way, it was purely because I was just being myself. I was being transparent. I was
Hmm.
sharing a piece of myself and somebody else related to that, right? So I think just from talking, being open, having discussions, I think that will bring a lot of impact to people we care about, to our communities, and perhaps that can serve as a catalyst for the shift that you were discussing. You
Yeah.
know,
And I think that, when I'm talking about a shift, and I think that's a part of why I am trying to bring people together because we're going to have to work together to get through things. Like it's not getting easier right now, and we need to help each other out. And I feel like I see other people doing that, pockets of different communities, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get in where I fit in, right? And I feel like we can add to that. There should be no shortage of pockets of communities of your circles to lean on to help you through what is happening, whatever's happening in life. Um, so what did y'all think about the name? I feel like aunties, right? It could be a little controversial.
Yeah, for some people. I mean, I think it could be, but I think so you said it jokingly, like in an email, right? You were like, oh, well, we're the aunties now, ha ha ha. And I was like, that should be the name of the podcast because I mean, I do think that it's a term that I embrace. I mean, first of all, I am somebody's whole auntie, right? Like
Hmm.
I have nieces and nephews that I love dearly, and I really take that role very seriously. And so one of the things that I think that I see in terms of being an auntie is like someone who has wisdom, someone who is caring and, kind and wants to share what they've learned, and wants to be supportive and like all of those things. Like I only see good things associated with being an auntie. I do know that it also indicates that you're a woman of a certain age, and I embrace that too. Like I am, right? I've been through a lot. I've been through my tumultuous 20s and my 30s that were just all about like exploration and figuring out who I am. And I think now in my 40s, I'm still like on that journey to figure out who I am, but I've learned a lot on the way. And
Hmm.
I think it's exciting for us to be like, I mean, some days I still feel like a PYT, right? Like I definitely do. But then, other days I'm like, no, I actually have something to share. And if I could talk to my younger self and tell her some of the things that I've learned, I mean, my life will probably be very different, right? Like hindsight is 2020. And so
Right.
I think like looking back on that and sharing with other people who are on this journey as well about what I've learned and things that I did and it was valuable and things that I wouldn't do again and all of that I think is really important and like one lesson that my mom always said to me like when I was growing up is you can learn from other people's mistakes, you don't have to make them yourself.
Yes.
And so she's like, observe and like watch what other people have done and then use that to inform the decisions that you make. So I hope that like in terms of impact, I hope that's what we can do and be for people. Like we could be everybody's auntie, right? And like if
Yes.
you have that role, it's somebody playing that role in your life, like you could watch this podcast and hear from us about what we've learned. So I think that's like part of the impact that, I would like to make with this project that we have right now. And I also love the idea of like, making our elders proud. I think that's great too.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to discount that. But I think the role of auntie really is just like it's a leader in your family, a leader in your community, like all of that. And so I think this is a great opportunity for all of us. And hopefully, we are going to be creating opportunities for those who come after us as well.
Yeah, and I keep thinking about, you said an auntie is a leader, and as most of my aunts have retired and moving back to Nicaragua, our family's from Nicaragua, and so they're moving back, and all I keep thinking is, well, who's gonna make Thanksgiving? Like, who's gonna make the turkey? Who's gonna cook? Who's gonna cook for all our activities and all the things that we do? Where are we gonna go? Um, and what did you think about being called an Auntie Viv?
So for me, it was I'm okay with it. Kind of similar to what Adrian said. This podcast, honestly, is a little selfish for me, in the sense that I live in my head a lot, and I'm an observer. And I was thinking about this earlier. As a kid, I remember in elementary school, on my report card, talks too much, does great, but talks too much, talks too much, and I guess I just was this talker. And I don't remember at what point I ended up living in my head and stopped talking. And so today, as the auntie, I appreciate to be called that because, again, this is a journey for myself to say, I do have a voice. And a lot of times I hold back because I don't want to battle the fight against my belief. And I think my perspectives, when speaking to the collective, is a little hard because I resonate and I see sides of everyone. But I think it's important to live in duality, that just because I understand what someone is going through and I may agree with them, that I still have my own perspective. And I think in the past, a lot of people would battle me in trying to make me come on their side. There are no sides. You have your stance. I respect it. I have my stance. Please respect that. And this is where I'm learning to keep my voice to, as Adrian said, have my boundaries. I respect what you're saying, but you need to do the same for me. And so this podcast for me is very selfish in the fact that I am hearing myself speak. I don't always feel like I have this amount of wisdom, but I think just being vulnerable to speak about how I feel is going to be transcending for other people
Yeah.
that aren't able to do the same or feel like they have to chokehold themselves or what they say doesn't matter. And so for me, that's my stance. I want to be able to um, you know, join in the conversations of what everyone else has to say because my points are just as valid. And being an auntie is a beautiful thing. I've been one since I was 25, I think. And I enjoyed it when I was younger. And I mean, even now I enjoy it. My nieces and my nephews, my niece has a daughter, and it's just beautiful to watch our family continue to grow.
Yeah.
And, I want to just walk into my authenticity, and I don't need my flowers. I used to look for my flowers. I wanted someone
Mhm.
to tell me what I did for them, how I helped them. I don't need that anymore. It's good to hear it, and it's good to hear people say, "Oh, I saw you do this. I did that too." And that just is a reminder for me that you don't need to be told that by every single person who you have influenced in some way, some form, whether it's your hair, whether it's your lipstick, whether it's whatever you're doing in life. I think I need to learn to stand on my own and trust that whatever I have to share with the world is of value and of importance.
You said
So,
something. You talked about of feeling like you stopped talking at one point, and I feel like that's a journey that I went through as well, and that's everything with 2020. Like that's what I felt like I was being called to do, to speak. Stop. You need to speak up. You need to talk. You need to talk about what you're going through. And when I started doing that, it was such a peace that came over me. And it was like I'd go to church, and I would I would not tell a story that looked so perfect. I tell the story like, listen, this is what I'm going through, and I'm still in this place right now, and I don't know if I see an end to it. Like, where does God fit into that? And I feel like there was space for that. Whereas in the past, I didn't feel comfortable not looking like, not looking perfect, you know?
so put
So
together.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Like not allowing people to see you struggle, and
Mhm.
to know that you need things, and to know that you don't have it together. So
Mhm.
that really resonated with me in 2020. I feel like that's the mission I'm on right now, to get people to talk and to share their stories. Like your story is important. It has value. What you have to say has value. And you said a whole word too about seeing your family grow, and enjoying being an auntie. And my sister has a daughter that is 9, and she come over one day, and it was like I picked her up from school, and it was early. She's like, Tia, you're not going to work? And I was like, no, I work for myself. And she looked at me, you're a boss? And I was like, oh, yes, I am a
Hey.
boss.
Exactly.
And I feel like when people talk about like when older people talk about liking to be around children, it's because you get that, like that innocence, right? They see you as Tia. They don't see you as anything more than that. They don't care if you're perfect, not perfect. If you give them a safe space to talk, they're going to tell you everything.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think another perspective that I realized as far as auntie is, um, before I've always had the title. And I think a lot of times, as my younger self, when people would come to me with concerns or how to solve things, I gave them the tools to do it. And I'm like, but you didn't do it. And I hyper focused on what you didn't do, the instructions that I gave you. And in this space at my age now, as the auntie, I realize that the prescription that I'm giving you is not for you to follow by the T, that you will take this and alchemize it to how you need it to look for you. And that me watching you flourish in whatever advice you took from me is elevating you to where you need to go and not capping you at what I gave you by following it step by step by step. So for me, it's not a prescription, it's just my life walk. And please utilize it and alchemize it to allow you to transcend to where you feel you need to be, not where I think you should be.
Hmm.
So for me, I think that's the proudest point as taking this conversation as an auntie, because that's who I am now. I'm not capping anyone, I'm allowing you to flourish. So, yeah.
Well, so Adrian, did you want to share about the name? Did you have any? What were your feelings about going with "We Are the Aunties Now"?
I love the name and I love being an auntie. I've been an auntie for quite some time. Shout out to Juliet and Rachel. Um, but for me, especially like entering, like I'm about to enter the last year of my 30s. Um, I'm fully embracing it for culturally what it means, right? Like, because anybody can be an auntie regardless of your siblings having children or not. And so for me, I grew up with some dope aunts, right? Like they were bosses just like you.
Mhm.
They were women who did their own thing. They were making moves. They were making money. You know what I mean? They were sassy. They had um, just charisma about them. So an aunt, in my opinion, has always been this pillar, this wise woman, but also someone who just moves and grooves with life. Those are the examples that I had. And especially with the next generation of we aunties coming up, I'm
Yes.
seeing it even more. Like we are shaking the table up, right? Like it's not even about what
Mhm.
you bring to the table anymore. We're shaking it, we're rocking it, we're tossing it
We
over like we're
bringing our
Jesus in the
own
temple,
table,
right?
our own table.
Exactly. And we're cool and we dress nice and we have some sauce to us. Like it's just we're sexy. We still go out and have fun. We're spiritual. Like it's amazing and it's awesome and it's something that embrace. So it's like, when you were like, "Oh, are you guys offended?" I'm like, "No, because we are the aunties now." You know what I mean? Let's
Right.
go. Like I'm ready for it. So this the whole title, the whole of the episode of the show of ourselves to me is just it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, we do also have to be like just honest about the fact that there are some people who do take offense to it. Like I
Yeah.
thought it was very interesting recently when there was that whole shakeup about Michael B. Jordan and Jonathan Majors like saying, "Hey, Auntie" to Angela Bassett, at the Oscars, and people were like, "Oh, that's offensive. Like, why would they call them that?" And it's like, I do understand there's some people who are like fighting against the aging process and like don't want to,
Yeah.
fall into that category and they think that it means something that I just don't see it as meaning. Like I think of it as a sign of respect, right? I thought it was like a sign of respect that they called her that and that's how they referred to her. And also it was obviously a nod to the movie. Some people don't get it that for the culture, like what that means, right?
Yeah.
Um, but I could see that there might be some people who have an allergic reaction to being called an auntie, right? But I fully embrace it, and I think the name is dope. I'm like, yes, let's do this. Let's be the aunties. Let's embrace it. Let's rock with it.
Listen, I'm cracking up because in the social groups that we met in, they started calling me Auntie Rose, right? And this was before we met in person, and I wasn't offended. I thought it was funny, but I was like, these people are the same age as me. Talk about some daggone auntie, like
Yes.
please, okay, okay. But I
I
have
asked you that, Rose. I was like, how do you feel that they keep calling you auntie? Because like, where did that even come from? But
I think it was the profile picture because I remember somebody saying, I had a short haircut in my profile
yeah.
picture when I first started in those groups. And then when I met someone out and I had twists in, and they were like, "Oh, I thought you were like this older." I was like, "No way." You know what I wanted to say just now, but I was like, I love that picture though. I love the picture with my little buzz cut. I thought I was so cute, and they calling me auntie.
You are, you were cute. You absolutely were cute. And I know you love the picture. And I like I remember this whole conversation. I remember it. But I just thought that was really interesting because like you said, like the people in the group are not that much younger. But I do also think it was because like you were always dropping knowledge in those groups. And so I think people were just like, oh, Auntie Rose, because that's how they think about like that's what they think of aunties, right? Like
Yeah,
someone
The
and
cultural
sharing wisdom and
connotation.
insight and all of that. And that's what you were doing in the group. So it just was kind of a natural, outgrowth of that, I think.
yeah, and you know how aunties are given the respect and the space to speak their piece,
Hmm.
right? And I
Hmm.
remember people be like, "Ask Rose, she'll tell you," and I'm like, "What?"
Yeah.
Like, am I that bad? Like, but I remember once Viv Ava had said something. She said something, and I was like, "Oh, it's called balls," and she's like, "Oh, balls." it was just, and somebody was like, that is an auntie saying, that is how an auntie would speak. But no, I embrace it. I do embrace it as well. Like, I look at it as that too, Kelly, as having some wisdom. And you were with me when my last birthday in February when I turned 47. And it made me emotional because I mean, not necessarily the age, but when I'm thinking about how much more time I have left on this earth, right? I'm like, shit, time is closing in on me. But I met this guy while I was out, and I was at a museum, and we started chatting, and somehow that came up about my age and getting emotional about it. And he was like, "Well, you have a 47 years of experience powered behind you to get out there and accomplish everything that you want to do." And I was like, "Oh my God, thank you for that. Like, thank you for that." These are the conversations I have with people out randomly, just talking about all kinds of stuff. I always am like, how did we get here?
Yeah.
Well,
That's funny you
ladies.
said that. I recall when I was turning 40, I
Mm.
was, each year, 25, I was like, or, as you're younger, 21, I can't wait to be 21 so I could blah, blah, blah. I can't wait to be 25. And I started traveling and doing a lot of these like grown up things, had my money. Then I turned 30 and that was just like owning it. 35 was great. And then 39. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to be 40. I don't even think I'm ready to be a whole adult. Like, what am I should have my life together at 40. And so I understand this existential crisis that people go through when they're crossing that line of 40, whether to embrace it or whether to, as Kelly said, fight the aging process.
Hmm.
So it was a long haul for me when I turned 40, and I had this conversation with a friend that I would speak about it frankly. And I had just recently met him and we were on the phone and I just was very candid with him and very open. Um, he allowed me to process a lot. And at the end of the day, he never gave instruction, never gave what insight I should do or shouldn't do. He just listened. And on my birthday, when I turned 40, he was like, "So how do you feel?" And I'm like, "I actually like it. I appreciate it. I think I've been through a lot. I think I have a lot more to go through. I think I'm owning this knowledge. Um, and I'm taking myself out of because I'm a free spirit and I am really like a grown child. And my sister always says it. We go out. I don't know if you remember this, Rose. We went to Target one day and I just grabbed the cart and I just pushed it and lift my legs up and started riding it like I was flying. And she's
I
like,
have the
"Look at
video.
this big old grown." And like I just bust out laughing. I don't care. I'm going to have fun and I don't care who likes it or not. This is what I do and this is what I'm going to do. And I was unapologetically myself. And it's
Mhm.
those moments that allows me to like when I start to get uptight or when I get in my head or when I'm just like rigid with the day-to-day tasks, I have to remember that free spirit of myself because I love that side of me and bring her back to the table and say, we're not this boring old woman who's going to work,
Right.
picking up your kid and coming home every day and having to cook and going to start with the task of complaints of what we could all do. What we're about to do is speak about what we enjoy, what some of the little things we enjoy about in these day-to-day tasks. Well, I'm appreciative that I'm able to pick my child up from work today, that I'm able to come home and cook a meal that she rates 10 out of 10 today. Some days it's a 5 out of 10, and some days they're a 10 out of 10. And those little moments that I'm able to sit back and just like praise myself is the moments that I'm just like free spirit 40. Now I'm past 40. I enjoy it. And so I'm embracing the aging process because it comes with wisdom and knowledge. And it's no longer about beauty. Um, and
Yes.
it's no longer about the sexy while I feel sexy at whatever weight I am, I'm embracing it. I embrace when I gained 20 pounds. I embraced when I lost 20 pounds. Sometimes when I lose 20 pounds, I'm like, well, maybe I want 5 more back. But I'm learning to just live in me in that moment and accept me for who I am in that moment. And it's just fun. So
Yeah.
I agree with you. When you're reflecting and self reflecting, I think that's a part of the movement. A lot of people are now having introspection to themselves. and learning how to process all of who they were, who they thought they were supposed to be, and who they are now, and where they want to bridge that gap to change it and go to a different avenue, but also love the journey of that. So that's where
Yeah.
I'm sitting right now, and I think it's fun.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's definitely
Yeah. I
that
think,
auntie wisdom showing
yeah.
through
And
right
I
there.
think you, oh, sorry. I think what you talked about transitioning into 40, that was a huge thing for me too. Like when I turned 40, leaving my 30s, I almost felt like I was like mourning something, like mourning youth or something like that, right? And I was like, nobody's ever gonna say I'm like young again, right? Because like now I am in my 40s, right? But what happened for me was almost immediately on the other side. I just felt more like sure of myself and more like confident about my boundaries and like who I am and all of that. And that was the first birthday in a really long time that literally like I went to sleep and I woke up the next day feeling different, right? I'm like, I am
Mm.
40 now, and I owned it and like really felt good being in the 40 club, right? And so hearing Adrienne talk about the fact that like she's entering 39 and like
Yes.
she's like on that journey. Like I'm really excited to see what happens on the other side of that too, because I mean, certainly enjoy the last year of your 30s, right? But there's so much more to be enjoyed on the other side. And I feel like that's a perspective that people don't hear a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Because folks, I feel like we hear a lot from people who are like very young, right? Like you hear all these you see all these podcasts and shows and stuff, and they're taking this perspective of like these folks who are in their 20s or their early 30s, but like people who are in our age bracket, you don't really hear from a lot. And I think it's
Mm-hmm.
important for people to hear that like Viv said, like we still have fun, we still feel sexy, we still feel, we still are like out here living our best lives and feeling good while doing it. And though you don't always hear from us, like our lives are golden, right? And I think certainly everybody has their problems, their issues and all of that. But I think as a whole, my 40s so far has been the best decade yet, right? and
Yep.
and I think it's really important that people hear that you don't have to fight against the aging process. Embrace it and like fully enjoy the experience for what it is, right? Because I
Yes.
mean, you only get this one life,
One
and you
life.
have to make the most out of it in every stage, right? So I think that's another important thing that we can bring to the table as well. It's like, here folks, we are literally in the prime of our lives, right? And but I think a lot of people don't realize that. Like I remember thinking when I was in my 20s, seeing somebody who was 40 and being like,
Thought they
that's
were
that's
old.
it's
Right.
like they miserable, they're not having fun. Yeah, and I think it's important for people to see that's not true.
Yeah, I
Right. And
agree.
I know that we need to wrap up, but like I want to give you guys kudos because what you were saying, about excited to watch me like cross over, like one of the reasons why I'm a little less scared to do it is because I've been watching you guys. And sometimes I forget, like I'm not far behind you, but I forget how old you guys are because I've just watched you guys like grow and evolve over the last few years and how beautifully you do it and how gracefully do you do it. And so there are still things that I feel a little weird about as far as just where I am in life, period. But like the actual aging process, you guys have me feeling very confident about this whole situation just because you guys are freaking rocking it out. So like I just want to thank y'all for serving as an example for people who are like treading right behind you. Because I'm excited to be right there.
Oh, I
So
love that. I love that. Well, ladies, let's put on our auntie crowns before we
Yes.
wrap it up.
We have
Well,
been crowned.
so is there anything else we need to tell the people? Well, I will
absolutely
tell
not.
them that you could this is going to be a monthly podcast. YouTube page the fourth week of each month, every fourth Wednesday of each month. So we are looking forward to having more discussions and sharing more life experiences with you. And to all our nieces and nephews, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out.
Yeah.
Like and
Like and
subscribe.
subscribe. Thank you
Yeah.
again, ladies.
Thanks.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Look, clap
Thank
it
you,
up, clap
everybody,
it
for joining us.
up.
There's a little pause. You're in this applause.
Oh, that was awesome. Okay.